afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode.
Working on OpenShift
and sometimes we haven't.
This is so awesome.
Are an open culture that
it's actually
in
a big piece of the component for your GitOps work.
Everybody has something that they can say.
On top of the Red Hat portfolio.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You have stumbled into another episode of the Level Up Hour, where we consider all things containers, Kubernetes, OpenShift. So we have a really interesting episode today. And in fact, it is our 50th episode, so it needs to be extra special. I am joined today by my co-host, Scott McBrien. Scott, how are you doing?
Doing great, Randy. Loving this Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 beta day.
Who knew? You knew. So,
Who
is
knew?
it available? Is it ready?
It is.
there?
You can log into the Red Hat customer portal on the downloads page. If you select the product variant of Red Hat Enterprise Linux beta, you will see 9.0 is available for download.
It's on the down low page?
Download
okay.
page.
Well, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? So, look, we've got a great episode today. It's a little bit different than most of our Level Up episodes, but in fact, I think it'll be of great interest to our audience because today we have Mr. John Spinks, Senior Principal Technical Marketing Manager, say that 5 times, who's going to talk about Red Hat Insights. And Red Hat Insights is a remarkable capability within Red Hat Enterprise Linux that I think people, if they're not familiar with it, really should be familiar with it. And so before we launch into that, let me just remind everybody, look, like, subscribe, share, let everybody know we are here. And so with that being said, John, tell us what Red Hat Insights actually is.
Hey, Randy. Hey, Scott. It's great to be on the show today. And I am Technical Marketing Manager for Insights. And for anybody not familiar, it is a managed service whose purpose is to continually analyze platforms and applications in order to help you manage your hybrid cloud environments. And that, when we say platforms, it works for RHEL, as you mentioned. It's also available on OpenShift and Ansible Automation Platform. But the idea here is we can take a look at your system essentially with Red Hat's glasses on and give you our experience supporting the product that you're using and say, hey, is it in a best practice configuration? Are there any vulnerabilities? How many subscriptions are you consuming? And we can get you all of that information in an easy to consume manner.
All right. And so, you made mention of the fact that actually this is not exclusively a Red Hat Enterprise Linux feature, although that is where it began. How long has Insights been something available for OpenShift and Ansible?
I'll answer the unasked question first. For RHEL, we've had it around for about 6 years. So it's been out there for a while. It's pretty stable. We only recently announced it officially for both OpenShift and Ansible Automation Platform, but it's been available within OpenShift on On-Command Cluster Manager for probably about a year and a half to 2 years. So it's been available out there. It's just been hidden and a little bit in the background. And at Summit this year, actually, we made the announcement that it's available for all of our major platforms. Again, RHEL, OpenShift, Ansible Automation Platform.
Right. Well, so here's the question. To get this capability to, look with the Red Hat glasses at, all of your systems that are running, these particular platforms and so on, how exactly does it work? I mean, how does that actually manifest itself? I mean, I can imagine sort of a portal that would give me that information. How does that information actually get collected?
Collected, it varies a little bit depending on the platform that you're using because there are differences in the platforms themselves and the way that they operate. So we're going to have to handle each platform individually. So RHEL is the oldest. It's been around the longest. It uses a client. That client is installed by default on most versions of RHEL. So it's in there. It's part of the package. So if it's not installed, you have to yum install or DNF install it. And if you're using a newer version where it's already installed, you just turn it on. Insights-client-register. And that's going to start the process of collecting facts and metadata on the system itself. We upload a collection packet. The average size, last I looked, was around 384 KB. So very small size that we're looking at. And we do an analysis on that actually in the cloud and give back to you the data. It's, of course, fully supported by our GDPR practices. You have full control and can see everything that's collected, and you can redact or remove anything that you have even greater concerns about. So if you're like, hey, I don't want anything about my host name going out, that's a simple switch. Yes, no. If you don't want anything about maybe a particular string, command, pattern, you've got the ability to redact that as well. And you can do it either in a file or you can use YAML to do it.
Okay, so you actually have a certain amount of control over what's coming in here, and you need not fear that everything that you might not want to have showing up in some report or visible in some way is going to be visible. So it sounds very customizable.
And you can do that collection on your side without ever sending anything to Red Hat. Look at it, inspect it, and then go, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's no big deal. I mean, we have to run commands like, what's your uptime? What version of RHEL is this?
Mm-hmm.
What packages are installed and running, and what are the versions of those packages? So again, it's kind of metadata level, but we need to know things like that if we're going to, for example, look for an issue where a certain version of the kernel and a certain version of a package over time will collide and maybe cause some downtime or cause some issues. Like we need to know those version numbers so we can give you that analysis and say, hey, there's a potential issue in the making and you should be aware of it. And hopefully we give that to you before you encounter any downtime or trying to stop that 3 a.m. phone call.
Yeah. Well, so in some ways it's the sysadmin's dream to have that level of insight and so on. But it's also a bit of a change. So what sort of adoption have we seen if we're looking first with that longer term Red Hat Enterprise Linux use case? Has it been widely adopted?
It's been pretty well adopted. We still have an awareness issue. People just don't know what it is. And part of that is it's not something we sell. It's included with your RHEL subscription. So we don't have a normal selling motion where we're like, hey, go buy this thing. And that encourages maybe sales to push it a little bit higher because they get a commission based off of it. Like, we're not in that model. We're in a model where there's something that is a feature of what you've already bought. And this is true for RHEL, for OpenShift, for Ansible. If you've already paid us for the subscription, you have this, but you have to turn it on. It's almost in some way like, I don't know, you get a car with one of those remotes, and if you like hit the unlock button and then hold it down, it will roll down your windows. But you're only going to find out about that if you really delve through the documentation and read it.
Right.
Like it's one of these little kind of hidden features, and we don't want it to be hidden. We want it to raise the awareness and let people know that this is something that anybody has access to and can use.
Documentation, what's that?
So, John, were your ears burning yesterday? Because I was actually having a very serious discussion with someone about Insights, specifically the vulnerability service for RHEL. We were talking about how when you first log into Insights on the Red Hat Enterprise Linux product dashboard, it will show you the vulnerabilities that are outstanding for your system population and grade them by how severe they are. And one of the newest features that I really like is it tells you if there's known exploits in the wild for those. So like even amps up your attention even more. And then you can also get reports on like which CVEs are out there, but also which systems are susceptible to which ones. So like it looks pretty hot.
If any of you have ever been in that situation where the security team comes to you, your manager comes to you, whoever, and says, we saw on the news or we read online about this new vulnerability, and we need to know now how many of our systems are impacted. That used to be a real slog. I mean, log into every system one at a time, or go write a script and says, hey, I'm looking for the presence of this package. Oh gosh, if we got thousands of systems, that takes a long time. Versus if you have something like Insights in place, your systems are registered. Click a link, print out the report. Here you go. And then we even take it to the next level, and we'll tell you how you actually fix that, and even create an Ansible playbook for you. So we can show that off here in just a few minutes too.
Ooh, that sounds kind of like a demo, doesn't it? Well, so before we get to that, let's just sort of clarify and reiterate something about this. Is again, it comes with, and it's really ironic to me that the thing that comes with it might be free, that might not actually have as much awareness as something that we have somebody selling as an add-on. So take advantage of this. It comes with these platforms, and so let's look a little bit at how to get started with that, because it's a little bit different for these different platforms because they're essentially different things, right? They perform different functions, and it shouldn't shock anybody that it's going to require a slightly different process to get started.
Yeah, so RHEL, I mentioned a little bit about it. There's a client that's available on the host. You have to register with that client. So it's 100% an opt-in process for RHEL. Ansible works very much the same way on your Ansible tower or your Ansible controllers. They're RHEL based on the back end. So it's a very similar process. If you want information about the tower or the controllers themselves, you need to register those hosts to Insights. If you want information about the actual automation that you're performing on those devices within the controller UI, you have to go in and flip the switch and turn it on. And what that starts doing is gathering the analytics about the automation that you're performing and reports that information up to us. And again, that gives you visualization of what you're doing in terms of automation, and how many jobs are successful, failed, and then just ROI information even about, hey, you've been doing this much information, this much automation. We estimate that it's worth this much an hour in savings, and you've saved this many thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So all of that can be gleaned from the analytics of Ansible. OpenShift is a little bit different because it expects with OpenShift 4 a connected experience. There's remote health checks, remote monitoring, and an Insights operator. And all of that is connected essentially by default, because we expect with OpenShift, you're opting into that higher level of analytics and a connected experience where we can tell you ahead of time, hey, your cluster is not quite working the way it should. There's something going on. We can inform you of that. And that's very similar to model. I used to work for a storage company previous to this, and they had an automatic support type operation. Worked very much the same way, where if you have a hard drive started to fail, you get one in the mail, and it just shows up on your front door. So very similar model that we're following with OpenShift.
So one of the things that I found interesting here is the idea that if there is some sort of corrective action that needs to be taken by Insights, is that it'll actually hand you back an Ansible playbook. Now is that something that will apply across all platforms, or is it something that just applies for Red Hat Enterprise Linux?
Right now, it's primarily for RHEL and Ansible, because again, Ansible relies on RHEL as a backend. For the tower or the controller. They're also doing that same, I started to call it automation, but it's not end-to-end automation, but it creates that playbook for you where it can give you the intelligence to prescriptively say, this is what you need to do to fix it. So we just generate a playbook. And on RHEL, if you also have a satellite or if you have a smart management subscription, you can actually run that playbook right from Insights. So it even goes beyond creating the playbook for you to, if you have appropriate permissions, it lets you execute that playbook.
All right. Well, yeah. So it's very interesting to see how these particular three platforms are sort of evolving in parallel, side by side, sometimes in a very complementary way. Especially something like Ansible as the means to actually perform these improvements both on itself and on RHEL. And I would expect at some point that this becomes something that we see in terms of OpenShift as well, right?
Yeah, I should mention as well the Ansible changes. Some of the new services were announced at Ansible Fest. They're not actually live right now. They're in production, but they're in what we call beta. So they're available to everybody today. And when we, again, jump into the demo, I'll show you how you can turn on the beta mode and you can see everything that's coming, because it's out there, it's available. They just won't flip the switch and turn it into production until Ansible Automation Platform 2.1 gets released sometime soonish.
Yeah. All right. Well, so I'm just wondering, is it that time, Stabby? Is it the time that we gird our loins, that we prepare for impact, and maybe have a demo?
A live demo?
A live
What could
demo.
possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? John?
I did not burn any incense this morning. We'll do our best. I'm ready. Anytime.
Here we go.
Anytime. All right. So what I have on the screen right now is I have gone to Red Hat's hybrid cloud. This is cloud.redhat.com. If you're not familiar with it, it uses the exact same credentials as what you might use to file a support case or go view a knowledge base article. It's the access.redhat.com Red Hat SSO. So it's the exact same thing. So I've just gone to cloud.redhat.com. There's a bunch of information on this page about insights, about getting started, but we're going to start all the way up in the upper right-hand corner here. There's a console logon screen, and I want to highlight that for you. So it's right there. I'm going to click on that. I logged in earlier today. My SSO is probably still cached, so it didn't prompt me for a username or a password. If I hadn't done that, it would have said, hey, what's your Red Hat login ID? And again, that's the same one that you would use elsewhere on a Red Hat property just to log in. So here I am on the main page of the hybrid cloud console. You can see on my left-hand navigation bar over here, this is showing me all of these different platforms. So I've got application services, OpenShift, RHEL, and Ansible Automation Platform. Now, not everything here is Insights, but Insights is present within all of those different platforms. So there's some stuff here that's not Insights too. Within this UI, I do want to point out the little gear icon up here in the top. This is where our settings menu is. So if I go to that settings menu, I mentioned earlier that some stuff is in beta. And we've got two different environments here for Insights. There's the beta environment and a production environment. We treat them both like production from a developer standpoint because they're available to you all of the time. But if I click at any point, use the beta release, it's going to show me whatever the latest is. So you should see a visual UI change right there as I switch to the beta mode. We're trying to make this even more instinctive, intuitive to use, and maybe a little bit less wordy so we can get all of the findings across the hybrid cloud console to you easily and quickly. I'll pause there. Questions so far?
I think I'm with you so far.
All right.
Folks, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and let us know. So let's continue on.
Before I dive into the platforms, I want to talk just a little bit more about what it takes to get on this console. You just have to have that SSO login. And within the settings menu itself, so I'm going to go to that gear again, and I'm going to go to settings. Within this, we do have role-based access control. So I can see here under my user access what I have access to. I'm logged on here because I want to be able to show you everything. I've got pretty much full access, so I can see all of the different services across all the different platforms here. But within user access, there is concepts of users, roles, and groups. The users are the same users that your account has. So anybody within your organization that has a Red Hat SSO can access this. And then within the groups, what you probably want to do if you want to restrict this access is go into that default access group and say you only want a certain subset of your population that has a credential to access this console. you can go into the default access and you can remove some of this access. Say you don't want them to have access to compliance or advisor, and I can talk a little bit more about what those services are in a moment. You can remove their access
Anticipated
here.
my very question is what are the kinds of access control that we can implement? Because the mind races with the kinds of things that you might want to do.
Correct. Yeah, and so by default, it's most things are open to you because we do want to encourage users of Insights. But the big one that's not available to you unless you opt into it, unless you have somebody go in and create you an access, is remediation, because we don't want you to be able to actually take actions on these hosts, like physically manipulate them in any way, unless you've been exclusively granted that permission. So that is not part of our default access. But if you go into the roles, there's a pretty good list of roles here. So for most of the services and capabilities, they're listed on here. And you may even see some that aren't currently available because we also have the concept of private beta. So I've got a few things that you'll see later on, but you may not have access to, and that's okay, and that's expected.
Well, kudos for having something called an approval approver.
So one thing I'd like to point out, especially with the Red Hat SSO system, so there's basically like two sets of settings. One is the insight settings that John is showing us that are separate from the account settings in your organization. So as an organizational administrator for a Red Hat set of accounts, you can choose things like, can this person open support cases? Can this person download product? Can this person register systems with Subscription Manager? And those settings are independent of the insight settings. So you can actually grant someone, in fact, in the lab that we linked in the chat earlier, the user account that's used in that lab has no privileges for subscription, Red Hat services, downloads, but can access the Insights console and look at Insights data and pull reports and things like that. So between the two, you can set some really fine-grained controls over how much access someone within your Red Hat organization should have.
My other user, I tried switching to a different tab, didn't even have user management, but I've got a higher level permissions here on access.redhat.com. So my user has it. The other demo user that I had open in another tab did not. So yeah, within this, I can go into a particular user and I can give them that access that Scott's talking about. So we can go in here and actually give them different levels of access inside of access.redhat.com. And this is 100% separate from what I was doing over on Insights. So if I scroll down to the bottom here.
The reason that you had the user management field, John, is because this account that you're using right now is an org administrator.
Correct.
Which means that you can manage the organization, including adding and disabling user accounts within the organization.
Yeah, so this particular user I'm looking at is a pretty limited user. They don't have a whole lot of access to things, but I could absolutely change their permissions to let them open support cases or do any of these other items. But this is separate from what I'm doing over here.
Right.
So, cool. Well, I know we delved in kind of deep to RBAC, but it was level up hour, so we wanted to make sure that we were showing you some of these a little bit more advanced things. While I'm in here, before I leave, I do want to highlight that we also have sources. So if you're a public cloud user, you can set up integration with your public cloud provider from right here, Azure, Google, AWS. That enables some advanced features such as gold images if you have an appropriate subscription. It enables auto registration, and of course, it enables use for Insights and our services within it. Integration is also going to, I don't have any set up right now, but it's going to allow you to set up webhooks or do some other kind of advanced integration. So if I wanted, for example, a Slack notification whenever I got an issue popping up inside of Insights, I could do that through a webhook here. And then notifications is where you're going to do email notifications. So if I want to know anytime I get a new issue, new recommendation, I want an email notification, I can do that here as well, both for RHEL and OpenShift.
And one of those integrations that would be potentially interesting, especially to the system admin crowd, is you could tie it into ServiceNow, especially if you're like a ServiceNow driven org. So that's what the webhook stuff is for as well, or GitHub, or a variety of other places.
And future growth, we're looking on in some built-in integrations, particularly, potentially with like a ServiceNow type, but that's future. That's not today. But it's something that we're definitely looking into. Like, can we build into some of these really common workflows and make it a lot easier? So you don't have to go the webhooks route. Can we build in a native ServiceNow type integration? But that's all future state.
Right, but even with the present state, it is something that's possible. It just requires a little bit of sweat equity to get it going.
Correct.
Cool.
So, all right. So we talked about some of the advanced features before. We talked about some of the basic features, but you guys have an advanced crowd. So, all right. I've gone back to the main page here. I'm logged in. I'm still in beta mode. I'm going to go ahead and go into Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is one of our services that actually crosses all three platforms, the Advisor service. The Advisor service is the OG service within Insights. It used to just be one service that was Advisor. Whole thing was called Insights. Its purpose in life is essentially to prevent that 3 a.m. phone call, to identify issues that might pop up, let you know about them before you have any problems. So it's got a big integration with our support team. It's a rule-based type engine where I think of it as a if this, then that type model, where if we know a situation might exist, we can look for it, we can identify it, and we can let you know about it before it's impacting. Within the RHEL space, everything is part of Insights, and we have split these up into operations, security, and business. If you look on those tabs across the right, so we've kind of taken those out and parsed them into themes, hopefully to make them a little bit easier to find and a little bit more of interest. And then the dashboard itself, there is a lot going on here because there's a lot of different things that we're finding inside of Insights. So again, vulnerability, if I scroll down, compliance, remediations, patch, these are all different services that we have within Insights. But I'm going to look at this Advisor service, and what it's telling me over here on the right-hand panel, I've got 2 incidents detected. We within Insights call an incident something that is actively affecting your system right now. So this is not a potential problem. This is an actual problem that's occurring. So those are probably something you want to address pretty quickly. And then by total risk, we've got 9 important, 5 moderate issues, and then I can see them by category down here as well. So that just gives me a little bit of a way to parse this information that is presented to me from that Advisor service. Going over to the left bar, if I expand out Advisor, there's 3 different areas. I can view this from the perspective of a recommendation. So if I want to look at a particular support issue, I can start there and see how many systems are impacted by that issue. Or I could go to a systems view. Maybe I want to look at a specific system and see what issues exist. Or I could look at topics. And topics are essentially things like, let me look at all issues having to do with SAP or Microsoft SQL Server or even Ansible Automation Platform. So I'm going to start with the recommendations view. It's probably the most common. This is that high level where it's going to tell me about incidents. And if I scroll down the list here, I've got 3 top level areas I can look at. My biggest improvement here is around availability. This affects 3 systems. It's one of the incidents, so it's actively affecting my issues. There's also some important stability issues that are shown up here. So we can see what they are, and we can also see whether or not they require a reboot just at a very top level. So again, this is trying to guide you a little bit into these are the most impactful issues that you can deal with right now. And if I scroll down the list, something I want to highlight as well, again, more advanced users here. If I look within the Advisor service, systems impacted 1 or more. This is my default filter that is applied essentially to all the services inside of Insights, because what we want to show you is what is actually affecting you. If it doesn't affect you, do you really care to a point? But we do get a lot of people that say, how many recommendations are there? And where can I see the total list? Maybe I want to search to see if there's an open SSH issue or something of that nature. If you do ever want to see the whole list, this flag right here, systems impacted, you just click the little X. That clears the filter, and it's going to show you everything. So within the advisor service, we've currently got 1,059 enabled recommendations. And I say enabled because it's also possible for you to disable some of them. Notice I still have an enabled filter here. So if I wanted to see the full list, I could clear that filter out as well, and then I see everything. I don't know if I have any disabled or not. I had a couple. So we've got 1,073 total recommendations within the advisor service. I'm going to turn that back on, systems impacted, one or more, because I really only care about the ones that are currently impacting my systems. And I'm just going to take a quick look at these. Notice I have the name. I can expand one of the name, any of the names here. I get just a little bit more information from this view. You can see how old it is, what category it is, but all the way over here on the right, it also tells me whether or not there's an Ansible playbook available to resolve this issue. So this one I'm highlighting, it's an incident. It's actually happening right now. I'm going to select it to go into a little bit more detail. This is going to show me which systems are affected by this issue. So if I scroll down the list here, I've got 5 total systems. And notice they vary across different operating systems. So here it's not telling me how to fix it, because the actual particulars of how to fix this issue will probably differ between a RHEL 8.2 system and a RHEL 7.3 system. So if I want to know how to fix this issue, I'm going to have to go one level deeper, select that specific host, and now this is going to give me that prescriptive level of information about this issue, and particularly the steps to resolve it. And we can either resolve it using a simple yum update, or alternatively, we can go into the SSHD config here and we can change from the lines and restart the service. So you've got 2 different ways that you could potentially fix this issues here for this particular version of RHEL.
So, I mean, I love the very tailored guidance on a release basis, because things do tend to change just a little bit from even one dot release to another. But I also like the fact that it still leaves the control in your hands as to whether you're actually going to jump in with that fix or not, because as we know, there's always side effects, right? And you want to be able to have that opportunity to go, okay, this sounds like a good idea. I see the issue that's being raised. Let me think about the particular, maybe sometimes even ill-advised, I don't know, things that we might be doing in our environment that will get all blown up if I take this step. And it gives me, as that person looking at this report, the opportunity to go, okay, let me think about this. Let me think it through. I'm not going to have to research, some of that, in this particular case, arcane SSHD config, changes that I would need to do. It's telling me what to do, but at least it lets, so I sort of cut ahead on the research part. And now it's really, is this something that actually has an impact that I need to think about? Okay, I think this is good. I hit go.
Absolutely.
So,
and
Randy, by research, do you mean Google and Stack Overflow? Just asking for a friend.
Well, yeah, exactly.
did your own research.
Hey, there's your integration that you need, John, is you have a Stack Overflow integration with Insights.
We don't have that one. We do have a link to our Red Hat knowledge base article, but we don't go to Stack Overflow. So.
And the knowledge base is a good resource for everybody to know about.
That's for sure. So I do want to show you the next step of this. Is I've showed you, hey, here's how you look at a specific machine and how you address it. But I'm just going to fix all of these systems. And we can do it by just clicking the checkbox. I've selected all 5 systems. And I can click this remediate button over here. And what this is going to do is actually create a playbook for me. All right, so create it, level up, fix it. I'm going to review the systems. This is just what we looked at. There are 5 systems that are selected. Click next. It's going to summarize for me what I need to do in order to resolve this. It's also going to tell me that I do not require a reboot. So if I submit this, what I've essentially just done is created a playbook within the Insights context. So this playbook, I can see it from within the UI. I clicked the hyperlink and it just redirected me on the left-hand side. If I scroll down, there's a remediation section. And within this particular playbook, I can again scroll down. Here's one action across 5 different systems. Now, if I want to, I could go and add a bunch of other actions in here. So if I want to fix a lot of things, or I want to do like a quarterly patching cycle, I could add all of the things here. But what I'm going to do for this particular issue is there's a download playbook button over here in the upper right. I'm going to click that. What it's going to do is download for me a playbook in a zip format. And I'm waiting for my utility to extract it. All right. And then I'm going to open the YAML file. And hopefully this is visible on your screen. But this is the playbook that I just generated. And I can see the information about it. Here's the host that I selected. We do include, in the event that you're going to run this playbook from Insights, there is a signature involved. So we can compare the signature and make sure that this playbook has not been modified. So somebody's not gone in and put something malicious in here. We can also, we get our diagnosis information from the Insights client. We update our cloud init package in this case. If we need to enable any repos, we would do that. We have a mix of RHEL 7 and RHEL 8 in this playbook, so we're handling both of these individually. And then at the end, what we do is we run Insights again. That generates a new collection, sends it on to Insights, and that way we can see in the UI that we've cleared up that issue. So I can take that playbook after downloading it, and I can use that playbook on my own if I want to. So at this point, if I've got the playbook locally, I use Ansible locally on my, my host, my system, I can do that. You can also, if you're a user of Ansible Tower, Automation Controller, you can sync the playbooks over to your automation controller. And that way you've got those playbooks over there and you can run them outside of this environment.
Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility in how you choose to take action, how you manage the different systems that might be impacted by this and so on. A lot of flexibility.
And John, I noticed that there's also the execute playbook button exposed in your interface, but that needs a little bit of extra stuff, right?
Yes. So the execute playbook button is the only thing that I will talk about today that requires an additional subscription. So everything else I've touched, everything else you see in this UI is all part of Insights, is all part of either your RHEL subscription, your Ansible Automation Platform subscription, or your OpenShift subscription. The only exception to this is the execute playbook button. It requires a smart management subscription. So many customers probably already have this. If they're already using a satellite, for example, you've already got smart management. You've got everything you need. And what you would want to do is click this little doc link on how to use Cloud Connector. So smart management currently includes 2 components. It includes satellite and it includes Cloud Connector. So those are your 2. You put them together and that enables this execute playbook button. So what that really means is on the satellite itself, you just enable Cloud Connector. It's a built-in playbook that's on the satellite host already. You click it, it does everything it needs to do on the satellite end, and then it creates a connection, basically a WebSocket between your satellite and Insights. When you click this execute playbook button, what it's going to do is it's going to review the systems. I've got 5 total systems listed here. 3 of them are connected via my satellite. 2 of them are not. So on these 3 systems that are connected, I can go ahead and run this playbook and I can fix these things right now. For the 2 that are directly connected, I'm going to have to somehow either connect them to the satellite so I can run this, or I'm going to have to go and run that playbook manually on those systems or fix them using the directions that I showed you earlier. And I'm just going to close that screen for now. But that gives you additional capability to fix all the things that Insights finds from one place.
Yep, and that requires smart management. So just to, clarify what's been clarified is that when we're talking about Insights itself, it comes with the platforms that it supports. Smart management is an additional subscription, but that's what's going to provide the capabilities to actually do the fixing from one place in the way that you just described.
Yep.
Am I correct?
Correct. Because you need that satellite piece, and that
Right.
satellite piece is included with smart management. So if you've got your
Exactly.
satellite running, it's super easy to connect the two and enable this. This is also where that RBAC comes into play. You don't want just anybody to be able to make changes on a system. So you've got to give that person the remediations administrator capability, or otherwise, even if you have the right subscription, this button won't be available to you.
Right. Okay. Dare we wander into additional demos here? Because so far so good.
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's talk a little bit, just super quick, about all the items on this left-hand side, because there is a ton of stuff in Insights. And if you hear anything of interest you want to know more about, just stop me and ask. But the drift service is essentially there for the purpose of, I want to compare a system to another system, or I want to compare a system to a baseline. So this is your standard operating environment kind of methodology, but super simplified, where I know I expect a system to look like this. Let's compare to how it actually looks like. And you can even compare it to historical profiles. So you come in Monday morning and something's not working, and it worked perfectly fine on Friday. You can compare the status of the system on Monday versus Friday and see exactly what changed from like a package level. That doesn't go down to the file level, though. It's like at package metadata type level.
Right. Well, okay, so there's a certain irony here in that I think the more you actually use Insights and the capabilities that you have, probably the less drift you're going to have. But at the same time, it also has the ability to track that drift and help you correct it when it does happen. Right.
Any system you use is going to have drift.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
one of the nice things that was a recent feature of this is you can now actually subscribe systems to the baseline. So I've, for this particular one, which I call baseless because I have a very poor sense of humor, and I subscribe 3 systems to it, and then I get notified in my email, I think once a week, or is it once a day? I don't remember. But whenever a system drifts off of it, I get a notification telling me that, hey, this system has changed from the baseline, and I can go in here and inspect it and see what's happening. Image Builder, this is one of the things that's in a private beta, so not everybody is going to see it. So we're not going to talk about it a whole lot, but the idea here is that you can create an image and use that image in the public cloud. So this is very similar to your on-prem image builder. Inventory, this is a list of all of the hosts that you have registered to your Insights environment. This is my lab test environment. I do get other people using this with workshops and stuff. So I'm only at 20 systems right now, but it will balloon up or down just depending on the usage. And from this inventory, you could actually go into a host. And if you wanted to see specific findings from any of the services or some of the specific facts that we collect, you can see it all from here. So if you want to go in and say, hey, what's my advisor results? We already talked about advisor. I can see exactly what the advisor results are for this particular host.
And John, just to reiterate something that you said earlier, we collect those facts, but people can choose what facts to share with us, right?
Yes. So within that collection that you're doing on Insights, we will definitely be able to say, hey, I don't want anybody to know about my networking stack. You can hide your entire networking stack. The problem there becomes we can't give you any insights into what's going on in that networking stack. We had one of the technical account managers or TAMs that we have at Red Hat told me a story about one of their customers that was testing out Insights. They got a notification about network bonding, like your network bonding is misconfigured, and the customer was like, you guys need to check your software. We don't use network bonding, so this is obviously a false positive. And he went, let's look into this. It's reporting this for a reason. Let's dig in a little bit and figure out why. Turns out that one of the admins had accidentally typed in nm CLI command and partially enabled network bonding and didn't even realize it. So
Wow.
Like, it's those things that you don't anticipate. Like, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but having something out there kind of watching your system and doing those little checks you should do, but you really don't have time for. That's one of the big advantages of Insights. All right, I'm going to jump into the security theme real quick. This is where we get a lot of interest, and quite frankly, this is what draws a whole lot of people to Insights. It was that conversation that we had a little bit earlier talking about CVEs, and hey, I want to know what systems are affected by any common vulnerabilities and exposures. This one of the new features is the known exploit feature, where we can identify if any of your systems are affected by a CVE that have a known exploit. This does not mean that you have been exploited. This means that the particular CVE has a public exploit available that somebody could potentially take advantage of. So this is a little bit higher impact, so we definitely want to let you know about it. You'll also see something in here called a security rule. This means that the CVE has a little bit more information where a team within Red Hat has gone in, really dug into the issue and determined that, hey, there's more here that we really want to tell you about. This could be associated CVEs. This could be some RHEL specific behaviors. But this just means that it's a CVE that's impactful, and we've done a lot of extra due diligence on it to inform you about what's going on. And just like with Advisor, like any of these, click the box, click remediate, and we will be fixing this stuff for you. Because vulnerabilities and CVEs tend to be a lot deeper scrutinized, we also give you the option here to provide a business risk. So like we say at Red Hat that this particular CVE is moderate, but maybe you're like, for us, we got to fix this. So you're able to go into any of these CVEs, provide your own business risk. So we could go in here and edit the business risk and say, for this one, this is high, and it's high because boss says so. So that's super important. We got to address that one. And then as you actually go through the status of fixing these issues, maybe boss says so, but we got to do a little bit more due diligence on it than that, unfortunately. So we can start it out in review. That just means we're going through the process of looking more into the CVE. Maybe then once we say it's good, we're scheduling it for a patch, and then eventually that we're going to resolve this. Or we could just say, hey, like we're accepting the risk. We've resolved it just via other mitigation. So you've got the options to go in here, walk through the CVE remediation steps however you like. So this is one of those services that gets a lot of interest, a lot of scrutiny. We've got a ability to generate your own custom reports based off of the CVE, so you can export. Again, boss calls you and say, hey, I heard about this new thing on the news. Let's take care of it.
You just anticipated my next question, which was, okay, so we have these capabilities for tracking the CVEs, mitigating in a way that makes sense for us based on the level of risk, all of those kinds of things. Somebody outside of our Insights console, somebody north of us in the food chain, in our corporate organization, reads something in the paper and says, I want to know what we're doing about vulnerabilities here. And maybe everything's very well in hand, but you need to produce that report. Yep. I saw something called executive report. That sounds like something that is exactly what you need is, well, here, look at all this. This is what we do. This is the answer. Please leave us alone.
That sounds like some Randy Russell stuff right there. Executive report, Randy Russell.
That's it. And there's a few different ways that we can do reporting within Insights itself. I went back a step to the CVEs. Any of these view are WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. So if I go in here and I apply a bunch of filters, maybe I say like I really only want to see things with security rules, and I really only want to see maybe a CVSS, that's the Common Vulnerability Scoring System. I only want to see CVSS issues between a 6 and a 10. So I'm going to click that in here.
I wanted to make a comment on that, John.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the great things about Red Hat is our product security team, because they are fantastic. And they're the ones that help determine these CVSS scores. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into them. So for things like importance or critical, a lot of times they're remotely executable or remotely vulnerable. Whereas like moderates or lows, you have to have local credentials on a system or locally running processes on a system. So there's a whole bunch of decision criteria that go into setting what these scores are. And for a lot of the products, I can only speak for RHEL. We do update management. So, for example, if you're in an extended update or a maintenance phase of support lifecycle for your release, you only get importance and criticals because those are the ones that we're most concerned about updated. And then if you're in full support, you get the whole gamut of stuff. But so knowing what the CVSS score is and knowing how important it is to your organization based off of it helps determine which ones you should pay really close attention to.
And we
And
actually
one last side note.
Yep.
There is sometimes a difference between Red Hat's CVSS score and like MITRE's CVSS score. And the reason for that is that our product security team will look at things and go, oh, this is mitigated by SE Linux. So for us, this is a moderate or low, even though for someone else, this could be a high or important. And security scanning software and things that you might run into in the corporate environment doesn't always account for that differential. They might pull descriptions just from MITRE, and then the risk management officer comes to your desk and is like, "Wah!" And you could be like, "No, we're cool. Look, it's a moderate, and so we don't have to care as much."
Yeah, and we do scrape that CVE database for the CVSS breakdown. You can see it inside the UI here, and I click the little question mark, and that actually tells you what all these mean. So if you don't know that AV is attack vector, AC is attack complexity, we summarize it right here on the page for you, but you can always click that question mark and get more details about what that breakdown is. But the point I was making, within this view, what you see is what you get. At any point you click this little button, you can export it out to CSV, JSON, PDF. So if you customize this to show what the boss wants, you can do it this way. We also have this reports view, and we've got the executive report. That's just a PDF. That's going to show you the top vulnerabilities you have, breaking it down by CVSS, base scores, by other metrics. Let me see if that'll pop open real quick and be good and readable here. So this is going to summarize.
Because executives, they need like pictures.
It needs a picture.
Of course it has graph. It's not a great graph, but it's got a graph. And then it's summarizing which ones. And then I think there's another graph on the second page. There you go. So we've got graphed. But along with this executive report, we know that some people want to see the data in a certain format. We've got the ability to create your own custom report. Again, this has got a level of customization to it here where you can include certain CVE levels, whether or not it's got flags such as known exploit or security rules, and then you can create your own PDF report based out of here. I know we're running out of time, so super quick. Compliance looks at regulatory compliance. This is your things like your PCI, your HIPAA, so you can compare your systems against any of those regulatory compliance. This is probably one of the most full-featured OpenSCAP reporting compliance services that we have anywhere within Red Hat. The policy service allows you to create your own custom policies. So these are things, is the firewall enabled? If somebody turns that firewall off, let me know, because our corporate policy says that thing's turned on. Or conversely, do any systems have Wireshark enabled? We don't allow that here. Like nobody's sniffing our crap. Somebody puts a Wireshark package on, notify me. You can create any of those kind of things here as well. And then patch. Do my systems need patch? Are there any advisories that are applicable to my systems? If I scroll down, we do have the subscription service. Subscription management is a big pain for a lot of our customers. Oh, there's my demo. There's always somewhere along there where it's going to break.
What
could possibly go wrong?
Possibly go wrong. Yes. So within the subscription service, we can tell you here, like, what subscriptions am I consuming? Hard refresh fix that. And it will actually compare it to your subscription threshold. So if I look here on October 20th, I'm using 19 public RHEL, 5 virtualized RHEL, no physical RHEL. And I can, again, export this out. This makes subscription management easy. This is the number of sockets that I'm consuming. And I can even see which systems are, consuming which socket and even in which public cloud. So I can see that Tower 383 is in public cloud. It's in AWS. It's using one socket. And then another beta service we've got is resource optimization. This is letting me know about the systems that are on the public cloud. And are they oversized? Are they undersized? Are they idling? So this one is in public beta.
Very nice.
And finally, if you're interested in this one, we just spent all our time on RHEL and we didn't even mean to. You want to know how to register your systems to Red Hat, to Insights, you can go right in here, and there's a pretty much a guided step-by-step choose your own adventure of what version of RHEL, how do you want to manage the systems, and do you want to use something like an Ansible Playbook to register them. So that's all right there within the UI. And we only touched on RHEL, and I want to make sure there's no other questions.
Let's hasten in these last few minutes to delve into, I don't know, maybe OpenShift?
Yeah, we'll hit up OpenShift real quick. I do want to highlight, I mentioned the advisor service is coming up. I am in beta. So this is a reminder that I'm in beta. So if you're not in beta, you will not see some of the things that I have on the left-hand navigation. So here I've got the list of all of my OpenShift clusters. Let me see here. I need to search for my TMN cluster, I believe it is. So if I go into my ACM hub for TMM, within the context of the cluster, I could see a few different things here, such as under monitoring, I've detected an issue. So this is part of our remote health checks. We've got high individual control plane CPU going on. And then within the Insights Advisor service, I can see a couple different issues that Insights has found for this particular cluster. We got workloads using deprecated APIs. We've got a system memory issue here. We've exceeded 90% of the reservation. And then we've got some Prometheus data. So if I click into any one of these, again, view details and remediation steps. So I can see how to remediate and the reason that we've encountered this issue. So which nodes it's on. So this is that same feel of the advisor service, all within the OpenShift context. Now, again, I'm in beta. The next thing I'm going to do is not going to work, and that's expected because I'm in beta. What we're trying to do is up-level all of these advisor findings, so you don't have to go into each individual cluster and then click the advisor tab. We're trying to bring this into the left-hand navigation bar, so we've got advisor listed right here. So if I go into advisor, what we want to see in the future is all the recommendations listed the way that I showed you in RHEL. Right now, it's not going to work. It's not done. So
this might be the first time that we've had a demo that didn't work, but we intended that.
Yes.
Okay, just
this one was on purpose. And that's because the code's
demo.
not
We know
done
exactly what's going to go wrong.
Yes.
It worked in not working.
Exactly. If it had actually
if it had worked, that would have messed you up.
I would have been train wrecked. Yes, I would not known what to do. So yeah, these two aren't working yet, but we just want to highlight that what we're trying to do here is take all of these findings from the advisor service for OpenShift, bring those up and make them easier to consume. If you weren't in the beta context, you would not see this on the left-hand nav bar, but since I am, you do. We also have a subscription service here, much like the one that I showed you on the RHEL end. So it's a little bit different because RHEL only counts sockets. OpenShift can count either sockets or cores, depending on your particular subscription. So what I'm doing here, I've got a ton of subscriptions. I'm not consuming anywhere near what I have. So I'm going to remove the subscription threshold, and then we can get a better feel for what I'm consuming. So on October 23rd, 31 cores. Today, 17 cores. And we can change this to a quarterly graph, a monthly graph. So again, this just makes it a lot easier to track your utilization of your subscriptions within Red Hat. The cost management service is another one we got. This one is specific to OpenShift. I think we're probably going to bring it to RHEL in the future. But this is, hey, you're using this thing in the public cloud. What's it costing me? Like where are my costs? Where are they today? Where are they forecasted to be? So you can see a lot of this information within the cost management tool. So this particular OpenShift cluster so far has cost me $127.89, but we're only in the third day of the month. So if I forecast that forward to the end of the month based off of previous usage, I'm expecting it to cost me somewhere around $3,300 during the course of the month.
Well, yeah, and forecasting costs is actually something that's an ongoing challenge. And so to know that you've actually got it encapsulated like this becomes something that makes life a lot easier for someone somewhere.
And again, it's all included in your existing OpenShift subscription.
All right. Well, with that, I think unless you have some more demos you want to show that don't work.
I think I've used all the ones that don't work up.
Oh my. Well, John, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. This has been incredibly informative. I'd say I certainly learned a lot about insights that I didn't know previously, and hopefully all of our viewers have as well. Stabby, any closing thoughts or comments? Hearing
Nope.
none.
Great.
All right.
Is he
Well, again,
speechless?
everybody, like, subscribe, and share, and join us on the next Level Up Hour. Thanks, all.